Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. I'm Brian. I'm the host of the Left of Greg show. You're going to be watching the video version of our audio podcast. Please, guys, if you like the video, like it, subscribe to the channel. There's going to be more content on there if you're already a subscriber, and a better way for us to get you guys some more stuff. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them below. Check out our links down below to get a hold of us and to actually find out more places where you can get more information about this. Please like and subscribe. Follow us on Facebook at HBPRNA. Remember, all these cases that we discuss and all the discussions that we have are through the lenses of what we call human behavior, pattern recognition, and analysis. So please like it, share it, tell your friends about it, and we hope you enjoy the show. On today's episode, Greg and I are joined by some of our past guests in order to commemorate our 100th episode. In today's show, we talk about some of the things we've learned along the way, how the podcast has grown, and we get some of our guests to give us their best impressions of me and Greg. We're releasing this episode on Thanksgiving in order to give thanks to all of you who have supported our work by listening to or watching the show. Special thanks to all of you who have reached out to us with questions and comments. Please keep them coming because it helps us improve the quality of our content. Please don't forget to follow us on social media. You can find the links in the episode details. And if you enjoy the podcast, please tell your friends about it. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy this special episode. All right, man. Well, one of the things we appreciate you coming back on here and celebrating our 100th episode. You were one of our guests, I guess, that made the list of people we wanted to have back. So that's good or bad.
Oh, wait a minute. It's more it's more reasonable to say Stephen Drum answered an email and didn't have anything to do today.
I think that's a better way to.
Thanks a lot, Greg. I really was liking where that conversation was going.
So
the list is long but distinguished.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things, because we had you on, and one of the things you did was, you helped build a kind of a resilience program within the Navy, the Warrior Toughness Program. Not just being an active duty SEAL, but this is training later on that you help do, and now you do that also with private companies and stuff as well. So I kind of maybe start off at, because this is around Thanksgiving time, big time also for resilience and mental toughness and all that, just because it's the holidays, which can be rough for some people. It always is at my family down on the south side, but that probably has to do with the amount of alcohol consumed more than anything.
Any holiday, folks. Don't buy in.
So what are you, we'd love to hear kind of like what you're thankful for, even though, middle of the pandemic still. We just had, I guess when you're listening to this, just had an election, so hopefully we're all still here. And what do you
still haven't figured out who won?
Yeah, that may be a case. This is funny that we're recording it now.
Brian will edit it in, and it'll have a photo, and Brian's will be frozen like this, and it'll say President so and so. It'll be a different voice and everything. It'll be very clever, I bet.
Yeah. So what are you thankful for still, even though it was kind of a rough year, 2020, and it's starting to wind down? So what are the things that helped you come through the year, and what have you been thankful for?
It's funny. I remember when this whole started. I remember, and I may have brought this up on the episode, I think, because we were already well into it. I remember being there, and right as gigs started, my live in-person stuff is what I love to do, right? I love to connect with people. It gives me energy. It's a passion of mine. But opening up the envelope with the check for my advance payment and just happened to tear that in half and feeling very like, woe is me, right? Because then that was the indicator of what was to come, and feeling a little bit sorry for myself until I realized, exactly how many people were suffering, aside from the actual human loss, right? But the jobs, right? The type of things that people were going through, right? And so then I realized, there's still a way for me to be effective. There's still a way for me to be of some kind of service. And I think fast forward several months, I've been able to do some really good virtual events, and I'm hoping I've really been able to give some content that's helped people. And I think we all go through like the different cycles, the highs and lows as we go through all of this. And I think, I'm no different, right? I still have my doubt like everybody else. I still face that. I still face the frustration of a wife working from home, of two kids, who are doing distance learning. So there's competition for both real estate and bandwidth.
Yeah.
And my wife actually gets out and goes to her offices to work. I'm now doing my thing, doing the Mr. Mom, if you will, making the lunches and all that. And so there's the one aspect of me that's frustrated. But then if I'm really able to stop and reflect and really look at and say, you know what, where do I find the gratitude, which I started doing every day. And I'm glad you brought that up. A good friend of mine, Shannon Cassidy, that we went through some speaker training. She was like, you know, where do you show acts of like, how do you connect with acts of gratitude in your life? And so I decided I'm going to do that every morning when I wake up, is decide what I'm grateful for. And you know, this morning it was my daughter's birthday, and I got to be there and enjoy that. I get to see her all day, and just being around my kids, even though like it interrupts my workflow, it's been a gift, you know, to be able to have that much time with them. And you know, you guys know from being in the military, that's, you know, that the things that you really long for when you're deployed and such. So that's like one of the big things. And I think I would recommend everybody take a time out, like before they go to bed and before they wake up in the morning, to just come up with something, and not just the same crap every day, right?
Yeah.
Well, I have my health, right? But something different that really, you know, gets you to engage in what you're grateful for.
No, it's really good, and you kind of even mentioned it. Similar issues, same thing. Wife working from home, I'm working from home. We got the little insurgent. She's you know, fashioning weapons out of toys in her room, and had to deal with the, you know, homeschooling stuff. But you said, because I had the same feeling where, yeah, the kids are here, it interrupts your workflow and what you're doing. But it's how do you handle that? It's kind of like, hey, you know what? I may never have this opportunity again, or this might, you know what I mean? Like, she's 8. So it's like, well, this is pretty cool. I get to spend a little bit of time with her that otherwise would never have happened. And now it's hard to have that every day if it occurs, where she's coming up here one time, like snuck up the stairs, and I was on a call, and she would wave and be quiet. She's like, oh, are you on a call? You're on a call. Okay, I'm going to go downstairs. And rather than just leaving, she had to explain what she was doing, which was adorable and hilarious. But you're like, it doesn't flow. So not only do you have the gratitude, but just having that kind of mindset of like, you know what, how do I turn this into something positive? And I think that's a really good one. I don't know, Greg, if you have a.
Yeah. First of all, coming up on Thanksgiving, I just want to share that I'm thankful for having a friend that is as motivational as Stephen Drum, that is as driven as Stephen Drum, that is as he has structure in his life that I only wish that I had. And I will one day. I'll keep swinging. But I would bring up to both of you, remember, every time that we were deployed, that we wished for this. We prayed to God to get us out of where we were so we could be back home with our family and just concentrate on them. And I remember thinking, oh man, I would love being on an island somewhere and just having my family and having nobody else. And, you know, every day we would get up together, and now we've got it. And every one of us has got some gosh damn thing to say about how it ruined our life or how it messed us up. So I love that, Stephen. Every night I drop to my knees and I pray for the day that I just had. And now every morning I'm going to get up and I'm going to be thankful for something different. So you gave me some inspiration there. I appreciate that.
No, and thanks for it. It was funny, and that's, you know, and that's exactly right. And you brought up the point that, you know, and we're guilty of this both on our personal lives and in terms of business, right? And I just had a call today with a client, and we discussed, you know, a lot of times, you know, our sales force, a lot of times our staff are looking so they're become so fixated on the future, right, on the next quarter, that it's kind of coming at a cost of being as fully focused and engaged in the present, right? And things can distract that. Excitement can distract that. Anxiety can distract from that. And so I think it's a great reminder to just stop and be like, all right, let's center ourselves and let's focus on what we can do to be the most effective right now as the people we want to be professionally and personally.
That's a great point, and we thank you for obviously coming on here, not just to recap, but your original post too as well, or original episode, excuse me, was awesome. We got a lot of positive feedback from people who kind of heard stuff that Greg and I talked about from a different perspective, and just how it applies, right, like you said, at work, at home, that kind of stuff. And sometimes we don't always go that route just because we're so used to doing what we do. So when you were coming in to go, well, yeah, what you guys are saying applies right here, and we're like, yeah, we knew that. That's why we had you on the show. But we appreciate having you on there. So we're curious if there's anything that you've had, or like listened to an episode or something funny about, I know, or a Gregism. I was really like, if you have a Gregism that's like stuck with you or something that you've heard on a show or anything like that.
You know what I'm trying to say?
So what you're saying is that, no, you don't have one of those. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
no,
Oh,
clearly.
by the way, and I speak very slowly too, right? Oh my God.
Well, it's so funny. I'd love to unpack some great wisdom, but I remember, if I can remind the audience, because even though I'm sure they remember the conversation we all had, like clear as day, right?
Yeah.
uh, is how I even ended up there. I was like, working with Greg the many years ago, being so impressed by exactly what you guys talk about, the fact that nobody else talks about it, and how it translates so broadly. And that's the thing that resonated with me, is you take something in this combat environment, now you put it in a different context because of how human behavior is. It absolutely fits. And that's one of the connections I try to make with my work is, hey, these things that we do to prepare for combat and be resilient after stressful events, that absolutely applies to the other things, even when it's not life and death on the line. But I asked you guys, I'm like, you guys are just so damn entertaining. I don't know what the hell we're going to talk about, but can I come on and hang out for a little bit? And so that's really what was all about. So I was like, hey, can I come on the podcast? You guys were gracious to.
No, we
so
appreciate
funny.
you coming up, man. That was good too. And with Greg always saying that, I look back to, it was hey, you know what I'm trying to say, or you know what I'm saying. And I eventually had to learn, like, oh, I don't have to answer that when he says that, because otherwise
Exactly.
half the podcast
so
would be like, yep, or right. Like, and I'm
on
like,
the
oh, I don't need
streets
to
of
say
Detroit,
that
that was my pregnant pause. You know what I'm saying? And see, there it is again. And so I do it so much that it's one of those diphthongs. It's one of those things that you don't know that you do. And then when somebody comes up and says that, the greatest thing is being roasted by your friends, because they have no borders. There's nothing that's without. We said that all the time, Brian. Who's worst on a Marine?
Oh,
A
yeah.
Marine.
No
And I bet the SEALs are the same way.
Well, you guys, I don't know if you guys had it in the Marine Corps or the Army, or the police department. Whenever you leave a command, whenever you leave, you get a paddle, right? You get the big paddle with the poem on it, the rhyming poem, and they're absolutely brutal.
The quotes.
Yeah, you hang them on your wall, and then people are like, clearly you had no friends in the SEAL teams.
That's why you always hang it behind your desk so people can't walk around to go read it. I was a SEAL. That's great.
I think, I just got to say, I mean, I just loved, being such as you articulated, Brian, being such a fan of Captain Dye. And
oh yeah.
those, like the projects he was involved with, I just remember, like watching Platoon. My parents, who were like very like anti-war, they're like, and they felt I was a little too much like gung-ho with the military. They're like, we're gonna take him to see Platoon, that raw, visceral look at war is gonna fix him. And all it did was just be like, hell yeah.
That's it.
Exactly.
And like Band of Brothers, Saving Private Ryan. I remember we all watched that. A lot of guys in our SEAL platoon, we watched that on my first combat, or my first deployment in the military. And in Germany, you remember, when you watch movies overseas, you got to stand for the national anthem, and then you watch the movie. And I was like, man, that was awesome. And the Band of Brothers, all-time favorite miniseries, hands down.
And think about it, all Dale Dye. So everything that you mentioned, Dale Dye was in the central theme of every one of those. That's fantastic.
Every single movie that you
our generation, Chuck Norris.
Yeah.
Chuck Norris. Yeah. Before Dale Dye, there was Chuck Norris.
That's it.
Yeah, no, he was great, because he like totally admonished me on the show. He's like, Brian, why do you say that? When I was like, oh, sorry, sir. I like locked my body. I was like, yeah,
I did.
It's my show, but yeah, here you go. I'm gonna go ahead and take a back seat real quick. So yeah, he was great. Well, man, we really appreciate you just at least hopping back on here and for a little bit more of your time to get from you, and we know it's valuable, so I don't want to take too much more, but we really appreciate you hopping back on here. We thank you for having a guest, and again, if we want to do something again in the future, I think we definitely should, because there's going to be more. So
hey, let's do something together.
All right, so we're welcoming back for this segment Mr. Scotty Witt, who has been on the show twice as a guest, who's been listening to us probably longer than anyone that I know of or that's listening, and has kind of heard us grow. So Scotty, first of all, thank you so much for joining us back on here for our 100th episode.
My pleasure. This is great. And it's a respectable hour. It's the first time I haven't had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning or something.
Yeah, I do appreciate that. We do make you get up at some really, really early part of the day, and you're half awake, and then you've usually got
Stuff
usually
to do.
yeah, stuff to do. And you usually the last couple times you had Bill Shakespeare kind of behind you joining in
Yeah,
on the
I thought I'd go for a Klimt this time.
there we go. We got something
You
going
know,
on.
I can't have kind of Greg in the background lying in a bed in a gold sheet, so I went for a Klimt.
I like that. I like that. I've seen
What, the image
Colonel
of Greg
Klimt
in
and
a
I've seen
gold
Klimt
sheet?
to Kiss. So
Oh,
Well,
geez.
here's Brian. This is one of the rare times that we actually are fans of Scotty Witt.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So there are many times that we have guests on because we want to move the dial or get a point across or argue a point perhaps. But you're one of those people that Brian and I just do the when you're on and just let you have an open mic. We drop the mic and just let Scotty go.
You had me at Cognerati.
That's so true.
And you were both a guest and a listener at first who reached out, and we kind of started a correspondence. And there's so much, bashing on social media and everything, but it also allows for connections like this, really cool. You're literally across the world in Australia, and we connected. You heard me on a podcast, and from there, and just to exchange ideas and thoughts, and it just really opens up that aperture, which is what we're trying to do, right? Is get people to, hey, you got to open up the world a little bit, see what's out there, and to connect like that. So I'm always thankful for those positive things that come out of it, because we only really hear about the negative, but we have stuff like this to be thankful for. So I appreciate it.
It's been it's funny. I went back and listened to the first 3 episodes again because I don't know, it was just something to do, I suppose. It's been interesting watching. What's that?
The rough episodes, I call them.
Well, the DNA has always been the same. That's the first thing that became really apparent. But it's been interesting if you take a 30,000 foot view. Sorry, the phones are going. I'm still at work here, and the camera puts on 30 pounds. If you
He's only doing this because he's out of reach, Marin. He knows. He knows I can't reach through.
He's like an 18-hour plane ride away.
Exactly. I'll forget why I went. I'm so old. I'll forget why I flew.
Who's that? Greg's on my door.
Exactly.
What was I saying? Oh, I think the DNA has not changed, but it was interesting reflecting, and my memory was kind of true to it. But it was interesting, those first few were really much a platform for generating kind of where you guys were at and what you were doing. And it was interesting once you stepped off that soapbox in a good way, that once you kind of got off what it was that you were here to do and you actually started drilling into just the content, it was really interesting watching both of you open up mentally and physically to different sorts of content. And that's when it started getting really, really rich. So it was like a story or a play. We needed that exposition at the beginning of who's Greg, how do I get to know Greg, how do I get to know Brian, and then we met a couple of the board members and stuff, and it'd be great to have some of those voices back. Like I remembered listening to Cody at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It's like and Will, and of course Shelley. It's kind of like just get some of those characters back. But once you kind of got your rhythm, then you both started opening up, which is why I flicked to that email maybe 10 episodes when I said, oh, you're standing up now, which is it's just a really, it's all about behavior and human behavior. So that's what I was picking up on is your whole body language changed. And that was the first time I noticed, which is the email you were talking about, where I went, hey, you really took it up to Greg on that one. It was the first time I'd ever heard you go, hey, hang on, I'm on a roll here, dude. Let me talk. Anyway, but that's just painting a picture of the last, 94 episodes or whatever. I think that's what's just dropped as 94.
Yeah.
And just watching that progression of the different sorts of facades, to quote, Greg again, got to get the scales dropped from my eyes, and we start.
He even does the arm motions well. I gotta tell you.
I gotta have a pen here. Look, I got a half a page of notes here on my yellow pad because I'm colorblind. So anyway, yeah, it's been great to and I made some notes of some of the stuff that like John Mitchell's episode 49 was a really good one. was just, I started to hear just some passion. And I know, and what was ironic, I guess, is that because you guys don't talk about motive, it's always about just stick to the artifacts on the architecture. That was the first time I really heard some of your emotional connection to the content that started to come out. And that was really good to kind of meet part of the heart and soul of who Greg and Brian were. And Michelle Palladini's, I think that was like 46 or something, was great. The Tom Lake one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was a particularly moving episode. That was, that whole period there, sort of 40 to 60 were really good. And then you moved into the fear stuff, and I think that kind of got you back on track. But and the mass shooting one was really interesting. Episode 70, and of course you both went crazy over, Dale Die.
Yeah. It's just,
Oh my God, were we fanboys or what?
I know. I've never
Talk about.
I know. I
Exactly.
totally
You had me
was.
at Dale Die.
Well, I even said it to him. I was like, all right, I'm just going to call this right away
Yeah.
because this is going to be a
You're
different.
gushing there.
Yeah. Well, and then he yelled at me. He told me, he berated me on my show, and I went, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Kind of opens up. Anyway, that was just an interesting observation. And the other cute observation was you didn't use who the podcast is affectionately named after until the third one.
Oh, really? Okay.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
A penny must have dropped, and then I think you
No.
started generating your own kind of bite that you could just drop into the. Obviously,
Yeah,
we're
and
trying to save time in
That was the thing, yeah. So leading up was kind of like, how do I intro it, find our own way? Like you said, you got to find the voice, and like we just got to. The only way to do it with this podcast thing, especially as much research as I did on it before we did, I was like, man, there's so much you kind of just have to do it. And all the best advice that I went back through that I realized work were people that were saying like, it's gonna suck at first. You're gonna hate the sound of your own voice. It's gonna be awful. If you make it past a few episodes, you'll keep going. Otherwise, you're going to do a few and go, oh, this isn't for me. And that was it. And I knew that with Greg's dynamic, Greg literally just not in a bad way, just not understanding the format. He doesn't know what this is. And he's trying to teach instead of just trying to have a discussion. And because that's what he knows and wants to do and get the message out there versus let's bat it around a little bit. It's going to be a little rough, but our opinions aren't formulated yet. And it was hard to get to that where now we can just be like, hey, want to do this topic? Boom. Yeah, I got this, let's go right now. And we can come up with something and have a great show and like go back and forth in just a matter because we have that rhythm and that routine. So it's kind of,
and I think Brian hit on something. Brian came to me with the idea of the podcast, and professionally, I have never said no to Brian because his instincts are great. He's got great ideas. He's always trying to move the ball forward. And so even if it's something I'm uncomfortable with, or I principally, it was opposed to early in my career or whatever, I always say, yeah, let's do it. Okay. I'm in 100%. Now, Brian and I are learning each other. We're in that dark room with 16-ounce gloves swinging around trying to hit each other on those first couple of episodes. And we would bring somebody on. And that was the exact wrong thing to do, because what we did is we coveted Clarice, what we know the best. So we brought our friends and we brought our board members on and everything else, thinking that they would be as excited and have the spark that we did. And many times that was not the case. You know what I'm trying to say? And I got burned a couple of times because I reached into my Rolodex and I go, hey, Brian, I've got this great person that I knew back in the day and I did this. And you know what? I forgot the old water under the bridge. So they would come on and they would go, well, Gary, you and Brick have a great little show here. So that Alcoholics Anonymous where we met. And we're like, holy crap. Like, you know what? With a podcast, you can't unring that bell, man. And especially when Brian started saying, let's go Facebook Live, all of a sudden the spotlight's on you and all those warts and all are showing.
Yeah. And so I was curious as to what, some people have written in and given similar, like, oh, I hear it now. So I'm curious if anything ever stuck with you or something you've heard over enough times that you now see it or hear it when you somehow think of it when you see something. I don't know.
Well, I think there's just a list of Gregisms. I even wrote them down. Trick bag, sled, 45 pounds, caper, architecture and artifacts, gallows humor. That one just keeps coming back to me. Scale from the eyes. And yellow padding it. Like that's definitely one where I go. I might be in the middle of a conversation, just doing my own thing, And instead of saying the words, I need to make some notes, it'll be, I just need to yellow pad that.
Yep. So Steve Drum was on. Steve Drum was on, and he goes, "Do you know what I mean? Do you hear what I'm saying?" And he was doing that because when I get animated, apparently he thought that I repeat those type of comments. I don't see it, and I've never watched one of our episodes. I'm petrified to go back. I don't know what I say.
No,
it was also interesting watching, listening, watching. At the beginning, there was this, which is a really normal part of the process, that some of the stories would repeat because you feel like you would have to catch people up on stuff. And then a little bit like, did you ever watch The Wire?
I know the show you're talking about. Yeah,
TV show called The Wire. What was really interesting about that particular show is the dialogue and the text was very unforgiving. Whether you understood the syntax or the languaging, and there was we're not going to explain this languaging to you. You just have to kind of get on board and deal with it. And it's been interesting also watching this, just bear with me, this is where my analogy is going, is that after a while you started to let go of feeling like you had to tell these stories over again because you just got on with the content, if that makes sense. And that was a great, refreshing watering of that layer of kind of who Brian and Greg was. That was, it's just been interesting watching that development.
Brian's going for that daytime Emmy.
No,
Brian's scripting is getting better and better. I think
it's cool that you can pick that stuff up because it's awesome, right? Because you're articulating things that I didn't know it, but I knew it, right? So I said, yeah, it's gotten better, but I didn't know what had changed. I just figured, we're building it and it's getting better as it goes along. But now it's great from an outside perspective. We go, yeah, well, here's why, because you used to do this. And then once you got past that, it got even better. So it's cool to hear that. And I really appreciate that.
It just, because I can't roast Greg the whole time, but I think a small roast on Brian's behalf, like, for example, the story you would like to tell would be the one about, I did really well. I didn't punch that guy in the bar, and then people were like, no. And it's like, I know, I've heard this. I've heard this story. I've
said that, though. I always preface that story now. I'm like, I know,
but
I've
that's
said
brain damage. Yeah, I really don't think Brian's repeating it. I think Brian thinks he's saying it for the first time. He's doing the Charles Manson. Hey, if I haven't heard it, it's new to me.
Yeah. And like punching the keyboard, but you've let all that stuff go. And what it means is you can get to the content quicker because we don't need the preamble.
Yeah.
And so each episode opens up quicker to what it is you're trying to get to, because all those little preambles disappear, and I think that's why it's been crystallizing and becoming more of a diamond rather than staying in the coal kind of territory. But again, that's just an outside eye sharing.
A very jaundiced, very brown eye.
It's
a very pink eye.
Brown eye leads to pink eye.
I like to call it. You got to clean the pillows.
Greg doesn't let up. There's a gallows humor.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what. It's like this all the time. So Shelley's answer, people go, it must be great living with Greg. She goes, I've been with him over 35 years. I've heard it all. There's nothing I haven't seen. Take him. You can have him. So Marin, people go like, what's it like hanging with Greg? And he's like, I just can't wait to get to the bar and have that first Jameson. So it's not very complimentary. In my own mind, I'm somebody.
That's what I tell people. I go, if you ever see me like start laughing or I like have a reaction, there's still about, I've heard about 80, like slowly the percentage of what I've heard is going up. So I'm still only at like maybe 85%. So there's still something where Greg will throw in and I'll be like, holy shit. I did not see that one coming. So
never heard that one before.
Yeah.
And that was also what was good about the going live, which is just too early for me. But it was an honoring and a respecting of your listeners that they can now start to join the conversation. Because, when you're listening to a podcast, I can't talk back.
Yeah.
It's just a one-way conversation. And by progressing that relationship to a two-way conversation means it's a much bigger respect for your audience, and I think that can only grow.
Yeah, and that's what we were trying to do with it. One, I'm always asking people, like when some people write in like, hey, really like the show, or this is cool, and I'm always like, hey, if you have something that you want us to cover or questions, just send it to me, like we'll cover it. And I always try to get that feedback, and it's hard sometimes because I think a lot of times people are like, dude, I don't know where you guys are going sometimes. Like, this is awesome, but like some stuff is, I'm not sure, which is okay. Cause what happens over time is people start going, oh crap, now the light bulb is going off.
But
For us, I know I've had ones where we've gotten done and I publish it. I'm like, that episode was kind of like, all right. Like, and we have people write that are like, dude, that was absolutely incredible. That's my favorite one. I'm like, really? And then I'll have one where I'm like, damn, that was so cool. We loved it. And people are like, yeah, it was so I'm like, what? I love that one. So it's, you're always going to have that, I guess, with which, what, we think is going to be great. And then versus what I think is like, that's all right, is you never really know what's going to hit sometimes.
Yeah, but it's like that in class too. Teaching, I'll tell you a funny one, Scotty, because I know you have a million. Brian and I were teaching with Shelly back east in a military base, and you never know what you're going to get into with the crowd. You never know what dynamic's going to work, and you never know if you got to be serious or hit them with a joke or how to set the hook. So you got to play the audience just as much as you play the material. And so we were doing this very semi-Socratic, Bayesian way of getting the audience involved by questioning them on each thing that we were doing right up front. And there was one guy, no matter what we yelled out, everybody in the class, when we asked, everybody in the class would say the right thing. It's Colonel Mustard. He's in the study. Look out. He's got the pipe wrench. And this one guy would yell, shoehorn. You know what I'm saying? Or we'd say, okay, what do you see? And he'd say gumball or something. And he was so off base.
We just completely no idea left field. Like, we're like walking through a video and we're like, and so which guy is it that's going to pull the gun out? And everyone would be like, oh, orange sweatshirt. He'd be like, the guy behind the counter. And you're like, what? Where did you get this?
But you got to keep moving it forward,
It's
like really good. You can never say no when you're improv, right? And so we're like, hey, you got it, pal. Go with it, shoehorn. And I still wonder whatever happened to that guy, because there's a lot of shell shock and battle damage,
I'm sure you'll get an email from them.
Exactly.
It was me.
Well, if I get somebody to say shoehorn, I'll know exactly. But
so if I flip it around, what if you reflect on what you were hoping to achieve initially and where it is now, is there a disparate between those two things, or is it kind of doing what you set out for it to achieve?
The original kind of thing was all right, I want to get the message out because I want basically like
HBPPRASSSAV.
Yeah. Like basically, yeah. So, but I want to get, it's almost free marketing, right? Like, how do I get this out? So, because all we need is people to hear it and go, I want people calling us for work, right? I don't want to be calling people. And that happened relatively quickly. Once actually I went on that the Mentors for Mill podcast that you heard me on. People immediately were just like following us. Hey, I want some of this. People reaching out. We want training. So I'm like, okay, step one has been met. And then from there, I wanted to continue this, and just all it was let's talk about what these are conversations we have in the car. This is how I came up with it. We were a couple of years ago driving from Los Angeles back down to Oceanside. We were spoke up at University of Southern California, their Institute for Creative Technologies, and we had to drive back down to Oceanside, California for this course we were putting on for their school district for the teachers. And we were just having these conversations in my truck as I'm driving, I'm driving Greg, and it just dawned on me, it was like, this is a podcast. People would listen to this conversation and they would be fascinated by it. So that's where the concept was born from. And then I just wanted to always talk about these issues or topics that are relevant from our perspective and give people a framework to maybe understand. And I don't ever want someone to go where I don't want to say, hey, here's the answer, or here's what I think you should do, or this is what it is. It should all be, hey, here's how you ask questions. Look, this is how you think critically. This is how you can, whatever situation that is. And if we can move the bubble on that to just get people to go, hey, you know what, this issue is a little bit more complicated than I thought, then now we're good, right? We're moving that bubble. And so I kind of wanted to keep doing that. And then now as we hit the 100th episode, and then to go from here, I want to keep doing that, but I want to challenge us in a way, like, let's do something that we haven't done, or let's cover it, but let's get really detailed so that, I want to do when you tune in, that hour podcast, you can sit down and, I got to pause and take notes, and then keep listening and take notes and go, man, I wonder what they like. I want it to be that engagement. I want the value to be very, very high versus just, us kind of discussing an issue. So there's different ways I want to approach that, but I want it to be like, you listen to each episode and go, damn, they put a lot of thought into that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and it's
Mm.
not to say we haven't put thought into
Yeah,
the
yeah,
last
yeah.
99. I mean, you don't want to
No,
throw the
oh,
baby
you
out with
no,
the
no.
bathwater. But no, you're exactly right, Brian. And I don't think we really had more pretense than what Brian is talking about.
Yeah.
But there was the third leg of that stool, I think, Scotty, was Brian and I both said that, look, we want to monetize this at some point. But if it takes a few years of us doing it absolutely for free to get rid of the charlatans, because there's so many charlatans. You mail me a check, I'll send you a certificate. You put your name here and I'll put you on a
Yeah.
whatever.
That's the
and
other
they're
thing.
they're doing crappy work. So we wanted to make sure that we drew a line in the sand and say we will expose our jugular. We'll step up to the stage and show you who we are, and that we are the undisputed experts of this, and let you keep swinging at us. That was the third thing, and I think we've accomplished that in large part.
Yeah, that
Oh, for
was
sure.
another meetings that we've had a number of people reach out to us about other folks who are doing things and using whatever, and they're trying to pass something off and sell something, and we're gonna go, oh, so I just said, oh, well, we'll just do all what they're doing, we'll just do it for free and just get people to
Mhm.
listen to us, and we'll do our free webinars and do stuff like this, because our free stuff is better than what you're going to pay them for. So so imagine if you actually hired us. So
Yeah,
that
it
was
was kind of admirable, admirable that it could have been, it was very easy to hear in your voices. You could easily have been drawn into wanting to debate what other people, and I didn't even know that territory, but I could tell that you were very tempted
yeah.
to want to either defend yourself or poke fun at or ridicule what other people were doing. And I could see that I could hear it in your voices that you were resisting that temptation, which I think is admirable, that you just kept to your keel straight and thought, well, we'll just keep discussing what we're doing. We're acknowledging. Sometimes you
Yeah.
say a word or two, about what other people might be doing, but it's been really good to hear that you've just gone, you know what, we won't be drawn into discussing good or
Yeah.
bad. This is better than that, but we'll just stick to our. And it was interesting at the beginning too. You use, when you think about syntax, you use the word moderator at the beginning too, Brian, which was interesting, where you positioned yourself as a sort of a quasi-neutral person. This is in terms of story writing, to help give the listener a POV into Greg's world, and then eventually you were able to step out of that role, which I think if you didn't, you wouldn't be able to have the kind of banter you did. So it was just really interesting, clever, whether it was a conscious moment to go, I'm no longer going to use the word moderator. And so you really positioned yourself early so that people felt like they had a lens with which to listen to the content. And so that was just interesting watching that development too. And then I remember at the beginning, I think you said, we'll call it left of Greg. And I think Greg's response was, I'm sure there's a whole podcast just in the naming of it. And then I started thinking, that's because you drive on the left side, which means if you're driving, you must be left of Greg. So
Yeah.
I figured that must have been actually what it was about, as well
Yeah.
as left of Bang. Is that what it
Yeah.
was?
Yeah, that's
It's
exactly
literally
it.
that
But
simple.
you actually never answered that in an episode. And
I know.
And Brian and I are both brain
Yeah.
damaged, and both of us have hearing losses, right? So we'll be driving along, and sometimes what I think he said or asked me, I'll be commenting on, and Brian will be laughing, and I'm like, "What's going on?" And then he'll ask me something, and I
Yeah.
won't respond. So we have a hell of a time.
We've done that before, and I'm driving and it's like maybe loud or whatever, and then I ask him something and he goes off and I'm like, no. And so we're basically each having two different conversations, seemingly talking to one another, both looking at each other like, you're a complete moron. What are you
Exactly.
talking about?
How did you
Because we
get
didn't
that?
we didn't hear it right. I said, no, it's that, and so we've done that. But yeah, that's exactly it. It's not just the left of Bang, but then I'm sitting to the left of Greg because I'm always driving, and he's
I figured you're always driving.
Yep.
And when we're going, you got to imagine this too, Scotty. When we're in a rental sled and we're driving around to get somewhere, we take the most circuitous route possible. We don't go directly at something, and we take a ton of pictures on the way in, and we sample the environment. So what you're getting in the car, like that drive back from LA, that Brian's talking about, where we're at that epiphany moment. Shelley was in the sled too. And so what we were doing is constantly, he's going, the car at our 6th, it's coming up kind of fast. she's doing her makeup or something like that, and Shelly would take the picture, and I'd say, yeah, the inattention, creates a blindness. And so we were sitting in there and it's like that all the time. We're just talking about what we're seeing, and I think that's so therapeutic because you get off the plane and you got to go meet new people, and so stress manifests itself in odd ways. So instead of eating poorly, we go and work out, we go into the neighborhoods, take a bunch of photos, we go do some street interviews, and then we're on the stage.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's really cool, and we really appreciate you.
Not too easy.
Just not just coming on, but giving feedback. And I know I always can run stuff past you, and it's really cool having that. And it's just so random. And we of course love everything that you have going on. And the saying never.
I got to meet Walt too.
Yeah,
and I got to meet Walt. I never would have.
And you've never pulled a punch, Scotty. That's the other thing.
Yeah,
you've always been absolutely transparent and brutally honest with us, and we appreciate that too.
So I think that was cool.
Well, hopefully you'll get to do another 100. So.
We would be truly thankful.
Yeah, we want to keep it going and keep getting better at it and keep refining the message and pushing ourselves and talking about different, getting comfortable being uncomfortable, I guess, as Andy would say. Really cool. So one, it's to be thankful to everyone who's tuning in, and thanks for the guests that have come on, because we've made these really cool connections. And we've continued the thread in other conversations, meaning we'll bring something up and be like, well, it's like John McCaskill with mindfulness, or it's like Andy Reese said, or it's so it's actually, so for our listeners, it's cool too. Cause then they're like, yeah, I heard that episode. So it's like this thread going through where we're trying to keeping it going versus just, each one being in its own, even though it's its own topic, we're having people like you and Andy and I, it's allowing us to draw. Then we just steal from you. We're like, well, it's but at least we give credit. We're like, it's like McCaskill says, what I mean? We actually give credit to the person.
No, I've listened to a few episodes since I was on, and I listened to Janelle McCauley. Great episode.
She was great.
There's definitely all sorts of threads where there's crosstalk between your guests and what it is we're discussing. So it makes sense that you guys are doing this. I love the idea behind it. I may have to steal your idea.
No, we love it too, because listen, we think it's a community. And so what we're trying to do is create this community of experts that can come together for really hard problems. And if we said, hey, John McCaskill was one of our 5 top favorite guests, we'd lose a lot of people calling us back. So we can't say that, but the idea of the anniversary episode, do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
allows us to pull back, see what you're doing, and keep you relevant in our scope. Because, we don't target the same audience, but sometimes there's overlap. And I think in that overlap, that's where we're going to save some lives.
Yeah, no doubt. I love everything you guys are doing.
Thanks. Same.
And happy to support in any way that I can, man.
Yeah, appreciate that. So we want to kind of start with one, what have you, first of all, kind of it's a Thanksgiving episode, what you're thankful for, and kind of what you've been doing over this crazy year of 2020 to kind of stay sane. And I know you're in mindfulness is what you do, but even though that's what you do, I know you've had moments that are just oh, fuck this. You know what I mean? I'm done.
Yeah, so, for sure. Man, so let's see. Since the last time we spoke, I uprooted my family, sold our house here in Virginia Beach, moved into an RV for 6 months. My 2 kids, my dog, my wife, and I drove across the country, planted roots in Colorado Springs, got a new house.
Cool place, man. It's really cool.
Thanks, man. Super excited about it. And that 6 months, funny enough, living in that RV, even though I'm a mindfulness and meditation teacher now, that was stressful. One, the transition, just leaving the military, kind of leaving a brotherhood or a team that I'd been a part of for so long, and then moving on to something new. Two, leaving an area that I was familiar with. I mean, for most of my military career, I've lived in or around the Virginia Beach area. Mm-hmm. And then 3, piling all of us into an RV and moving across the country. That was a stressful time, and I'm very glad that I had mindfulness and meditation to lean back on and use regularly. And there were a few times, when I lost my shit.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely, absolutely.
Most of the time with the dog, man. My dog, God bless her, she's a great dog, but she's cooped up in an RV, so she wants
Yeah.
to bounce around. I'm like, dude. But anyway, yeah. So I'm thankful for a ton of things. I mean, hell, we could burn up a whole hour with the things that I've been thankful for. But recently, I got an opportunity to participate in a Project Refit Grateful Challenge, where we did 21 days of posting something online where we're of what we were grateful for, and it really changed the way that I see things throughout my day. Kind of made me, for as trite as it sounds, practice an attitude of gratitude. And as you practice that over and over, you start to see more things that you should be thankful for. Like, I mean, as mundane as it may sound, I would go to the post office and I'm like, shit, I actually have an opportunity to go to a post office, send some stuff out, or receive some stuff that people are sending even during COVID. And as crazy as this world is, there's still a semblance of normalcy there in being able to send and receive packages, right?
Yeah.
Again, that seems super mundane, but because I was practicing this 21-day challenge, it made me aware of these things that were there. And the 21-day challenge in and of itself was something to bring awareness to veteran suicide.
Right.
Because, plus or minus one, the veteran suicide rate has been 21, 22 per day for a while, and it's actually spiked during COVID.
Yeah.
So we want to bring awareness to that so we can change it. So I was, again, thankful for the opportunity to be a part of that Project Refit Grateful Challenge. So yeah, those are some things that I've had going on since the last time we chatted. And
no, that's awesome.
that
That's crazy that you you had to, you did all that during this pandemic right now, going across country on the RV, buying. I know how all that stuff is right now. It makes everything harder, but I like how you frame it, like, but you then also can go, well, look at all the little things that I kind of took for granted before.
Right.
That, what I mean, that like your post office example is perfect. It's just one of these, like, yeah, you know what, that things are still moving along just fine. Like, we are still like we're just inconvenienced, and we haven't been inconvenienced in a long time. Or for guys like us, me and Greg, like, we're used to being inconvenienced, during certain times where it's our job. So it's not a thing because that's just part of what you do. But it's when you're trying to do those everyday stuff, when you're inconvenienced, that's actually much harder, right? Because now it's like, this is when it's supposed to be easy. I've already done the hard stuff. So
when you think of that too, you think of this despair, this desperation, and I hate to quote, but in times like these, that you hear the announcers all the time. When you were talking, John, and I'm thankful for John McCaskill, folks, and that you're on the episode, but just thankful for all the great work that you do, and I hope our friendship endures. I thought immediately when you were talking about being inside of that, van coming across the country, of September 11th. And September 11th occurred. We had hundreds of guests on the ranch. We had all this chaos that was going on around us. We were getting information very slowly because we were an hour from the closest town. And I remember watching humans, because that's what I do, and seeing them lose their shit in various degrees. And I had to actually, and thank God for Shelley, I had to actually stand up, supported by Shelley, on a soapbox, like the old days. It was actually one of the Mason jar crates, and get order for a second and say, look, tomorrow morning, Arby's is going to be open. Yeah. Saturday Night Live is going to broadcast. The sun is going to come up. You're going to be hungry in a couple hours, and we're going to have food ready for you. The horses still need to get unsaddled from the last ride. What happens is we so lose focus, and we think nothing can be worse than what we're facing right now. And it speaks directly to the suicide. I know that. We know that. We've all had those manic episodes where we feel like, man, there's nothing we can do to change the situation we're in right now. But look at how long ago that was now. Look at how long ago your transition was from the SEALs, John. I mean, when you were doing it days, right? Those days were like overwhelming. But now you look and you go, hey, I see light at the end of the tunnel. And for the first time in my life, it's not a train, and that's good to do that. I can see you kissing the ground when you got to Colorado Springs you know, and saying, thank God. And you couldn't, for a seal, you couldn't be further from the
From the
ocean.
water. Yeah, I know.
I need you
It's
to
like,
know
I want to
that.
get as
you
far
know?
away from the water as I can.
Yeah, that's why they call it the Continental Divide, John. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's the first time since I've left home when I was 19 years old that I haven't lived by some major body of water. So yeah, it was good to get out there. But coming back to, you know, you're talking about how things were after 9/11, how things are now. I mean, we still have so many things to be grateful for. And when I find a lot of us complaining, we're complaining about what, and I'm sure you've heard this term before, first world problems, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh shit, my internet's not buffering fast enough. Like, really? Is that
Yeah.
something we're complaining about? Oh no, my coffee's not hot enough. Yeah. Let's get some
This
perspective here.
water's
right?
too wet. Yeah. Like, it's like
Yeah,
we just
it's-
make
right,
stuff
exactly,
up.
right.
How lucky we are to
Yeah.
have ridiculous misplaced
You know,
priorities in our lives.
But
Yeah.
but that does brings up a point that too, like we also can't, you know, just overlook something and say like there are issues sometimes, you know, that attitude of, you know, hey, someone's got it worse than you, is true, and it's good to remember, but you also don't want to go too far with that. You know, I always do the opposite. Like if someone
Yeah.
got like a promotion to head cashier at McDonald's and they were happy about it, you wouldn't say don't celebrate. There's someone that has a, you know, someone got a better promotion than you. You know what I mean? It's like you wouldn't do it the other way. So
Yeah.
but it's important to you know, realize that too. And then I know you lost a buddy not long ago to suicide, and then right after that, like a week and a half later, so did I. And my buddy Tyler and I went to, it was this whole brutal thing. I did this great podcast. I ended up meeting his old platoon commander. His wife is head of psychology at the VA in Dallas, and she's a Navy veteran, and she was a psychologist. And it like, so it turned into this whole experience. It was really good. But one of the things you talk about, attitude of gratitude, is now that I've done is very simple, low calorie. Is, you know how on social media, like Facebook or wherever, or even LinkedIn does it, where it pops up and says, oh, it's so-and-so's birthday, help them celebrate. So instead of just doing like the happy birthday, I either call or send a text, and it's just a
Nice.
real quick, like I have my standard, like, hey, recently this happened to me, and what I learned at this funeral is if my friend Tyler had heard all of these amazing things about him, you know, maybe he wouldn't have killed himself. So what I do is I go, hey, I appreciate you for this. This is why I keep up the good work. Even if I don't know them that well, it's just like, because that on a birthday, and I actually did it to Andy Reese when it was his birthday not long ago. And he like,
There's nothing good to say to Andy.
no, that, well, I phrased it as that. I said, I just want you to understand that, like, you know, you would have made a very average Marine, and that's something you should be, really proud of, dude. He left
Well
me like a
played.
great voice message
what you
back.
dropped
He's
it,
like,
Mike.
he was like, dude, like that was the best birthday message besides my family that I got. He's like, and I just said, like, hey, just pay it forward, because you know, a little thing like that versus just a happy birthday, man, you know, you're gonna celebrate this. It's just like, hey, this is what I appreciate about what you're doing. And man, like if you just heard that, like it's just a little, you know, hey, you know what? Hey, I'm having a positive effect on the world. And I think that's one thing I started doing. So it's like something real low calorie that anyone can do. And
Good for you, man. I
and
like
so,
that.
yeah, feel free to steal
Well,
it. But what
I am.
what I like about you do on social media is funny, Greg, because you're always posting this great stuff, and it's like about mindfulness and hey, this and meditation, and look, having gratitude. And then Greg, what happens on like Instagram, the different accounts you have, like these different almost like bot accounts that'll like comment and stuff and say like, hey, follow me for more likes, or follow, you know what I mean? Like it's like doing. And John goes like right for the jugular, like, "Oh yeah, I bet you paid for those followers." I was like, "Jesus!" Like, because it's
Wow.
a junk.
So there's a
account, you know,
hook on the end of that.
yeah,
there's a
but
barb on the
it's
end
hilarious.
of that hook.
So
Yeah,
I love it because it's this, hey man, you gotta do this. But then if you're, because they're coming in with some scam or something, and then he goes right
Totally.
for the jugular on them. He's like, "Oh, get out of here! Like you're not well." Like it's like when it's, I love it because it's so, I mean, it's like it's hilarious that you have both, but I like appreciate that, which is why I appreciate what you do with you're doing this mindfulness meditation, but you're also a SEAL. So it's like, and I think that's how it should, that's but that's how it
That's
should be,
great.
right? It
You'll
should be
never
this
forget
like,
that.
look, I'm either gonna be your best friend, or if you get out of line and you're being an ass, I'm gonna fucking kill you. And like, and it's just, it's
It's
just
sort
so,
of Damocles.
so
That's
it's
what that
kind of
should
like
be called. You know, it's always hanging there. You
gives
never know when it's coming.
real binary choice of just, well, why don't I just get
Well,
up?
I mean,
Just, you know,
I
I
think
don't
we
know.
discussed this
Yeah.
when I came on your show, the trouble that I'd gotten in with my
Yeah.
then brother-in-law. and the shit that he pulled with my sister, and like any good brother, I took it upon myself to put him in check. And I think that's important. Yeah, we can practice mindfulness and meditation, but there's still a human aspect that we are all living in this life together, and we have to I don't know, embrace the humanity side. And yeah, sometimes that calls for a harsh reality check, and hey, put somebody into place.
Humanity.
Give us, if you've got any good tips for the holidays, especially on Thanksgiving, of that practicing that mindfulness, because it can be stressful, either stressful because you're not with your family, or in my case, sometimes stressful because I'm with my family around the holidays.
Oh,
so
I feel you, brother.
so it's like, what does John McCaskill do, right? What do you do in those situations, or when you're right before you get there, and during maybe a heated debate during dinner, or just that stress of traveling during the holidays and seeing family, and you got that annoying uncle that always wants to spout off about stuff. How do you deal with it?
Oh, well, first off, we lay some ground rules for if we are getting together as a family. I mean, not my wife and kids so much, but can you guys still hear me okay?
Yeah, got a
Okay.
little bit of
All right.
yeah.
All right. Just so if I'm getting together with my parents, my sisters, my brother, or my wife's family, we lay some ground rules. Hey, no talk of politics, no talk of religion. That's off the table completely, because as soon as you do, the cortisol starts getting injected, and people start getting amped up, and then it's just out of control. So establish some ground rules, first off. Second off is just realize again how good we have it. And Brian, you mentioned, hey, looking at things with one perspective, or the flipping the coin and looking at it from the other. It depends on how you look at it, negative, positive, right? But we still need to realize how good we have it. And not just in living here in America and having the first world problems, if you will, but in just being surrounded by people who can support us, whether it's friends, whether it's family, whether it's platoon mates. And if we're not physically surrounded by them, we can virtually be surrounded by them. Here we are chatting on Zoom today, but we could chat via Zoom on Thanksgiving or on Christmas. If you are in fact physically alone, physically isolated, I mean, due to COVID, due to deployment, due to whatever, we still have the ability to connect with others. And that's something that we need to be hugely thankful for. And we need to leverage that. We can't say, well, you know what, I'm alone. I'm physically alone. I'm going to shut off. I'm going to shut down. Because as soon as you start doing that negativity bias, like you mentioned before, it kicks in, and you start telling yourself this negative self-talk. You start believing it, and you just go down this downward spiral. If you flip that upside down, kind of imagine the upward spiral and walking up that upward like ladder, you can get to the top of that and come back up. So I think those are some tools. Lay some ground rules, and two, just realize that there are things to be thankful for, and you're surrounded, whether it's physically or virtually, by people that love you and support you, and you just have to reach out.
Have more than others, but
No.
And if you have nothing but praise, don't feel free to share that too, John.
No, there's absolutely praise for what it is you guys are doing, but I think I've already given you enough praise.
Yes. Yeah.
We're bastards.
But no, I mean, I just love the show and the chemistry, Brian and Greg, that you guys have between one another, and then how you just roll naturally with your guests. I think it's amazing. When we spoke last time, you mentioned you had listened to one or two of my podcasts, Veterans Path.
Yep.
And that they're somewhat formulaic. I think that was the term that you'd used. And I took that on board. I'm like, damn. I don't think you meant that as offensive, but I was like, you know what? It was, my stuff is somewhat formulaic. And so I try to start modeling after you guys, in that I don't have a script anymore. I have like a couple of bullet points off to the side that I want to make sure I mention. But overall, it's just organic conversation. And I think that's what you guys do so well, and it's not just myself and a guest. it's both of you and a guest, right? And the fact that you're able to do that as a duo with a guest is phenomenal.
All of them are incredible. And John, I think one of the things that you do well, and we have to listen, folks, if you're listening or watching this, know that we answer every bit of email, text message, phone calls, every one of them. And John,
I like how
does
you
too.
say
And
we. I like how you say
well,
we.
Brian does. I still haven't figured out which one to click. Brian has to actually nurse me on to the Zoom message and then wean me off of it. But no, John, I think that if people know that you're approachable and that you're actually at the other end of a phone call or an email message, it gives them some hope, you know.
Right.
And I think you're doing great work. Please don't stop.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate that, and I do notice that Brian's always the one sending and receiving the email, and you're just there in the CC line.
Okay,
honestly, I tell him not to sometimes.
I have
really
this
do.
effing mouse, and I still haven't been able. How long have I had this new computer, Brian? And I'm still working on pairing the mouse to the computer so I can use it. So Zoom is about as far as I'm going to get. I'm like Gilligan pedaling the coconut bike, you know, to get the radio to work.
And we appreciate you coming on here, man.
Yeah.
Safe travels, all love, and let's do something together in the future, buddy. I don't want to lose you.
Great. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely, no doubt. And congrats on your 100th episode. Look forward to sharing it and seeing it with all the guests on there, and learning from you guys and from them. So yeah, let's stay connected, guys.
Appreciate it, man.
Safe travels, buddy.
Have a good one.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
There he is.
Gentlemen.
Hey, be careful with the gentleman. That's wonderful, Walt. I see the family resemblance already. Look, he's got the pen, Marin.
Oh,
the jacket.
This is great. He's got the jacket, the pen, the poop emoji.
Know that I do not own a white shirt, you bastard.
I had the headset, but the headset doesn't work very well. But
oh my God.
So I'm working on that. I'm working on a new project, the Royal Order of Gregorian Homophily.
Marin, I don't deserve this abuse. This is great. Could you please expound on that?
Oh my gosh. Walt, thank you for joining us. Continue. Tell us about the Royal Order of the Greg Homophily.
Gregorian
Homophily.
Oh my God. That's too funny.
But let me just go to full screen here. I want to encapsulate this. So it's a little startup I've done. So we're working on a couple of things. So far it's just me, right? But it isn't. So we have a thing. After we say anything, we just say "Hail, Greg." We go right to that.
I'm good with that. I'm actually in support of this plan so far, Walt. Just so you know.
We're working on a couple of mottos. Let me run a few by you. See what you think.
Oh my God. Go ahead.
O Greg, who art in Gunderson, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom, rogue manor west come. Your teaching shall be done unless Shelley tells us otherwise. Now that's what I've got so far on that one, right?
That's great.
This is so good. This is so good.
Here's what I'm also working on. I'm going to run this up the flagpole, see who salutes. Never above you, never below you, always to the left of you. Now I know Brian will appreciate that one.
Oh yeah,
that is perfect. That
one's getting traction with certain devil dog types.
Of course, it is.
I have one more I've been working on. See what you think. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I ponder weak and weary over some quaint tale of coppers and capers of forgotten lore, there came a rapping as if someone gently tapping at our chamber door. Quote our Supreme Leader Greg evermore. Now that one got a little weird with the Supreme Leader thing. People got weird about that. So I'm still working with some of these.
I feel a little weird about that, but I'm not opposed to that one. Let me tell you.
I love all of this. My ego
loves that one.
I love all of this. This is amazing.
So we're gonna meet up every the third Thursday of every month, right? Much like the Masons. And dogs are crazy when it happens. Yeah.
As part of my cheering section, if you notice right there.
That's exactly what it is. So it's this little thing I'm working on. We were going to go just be called Greggies. That was a thing for a
Oh
while.
my god.
And when I say we, I mean, it still is pretty much me. But,
Yeah. No, but you got to refer to it as we. As
You
if there's
in your
others.
basement with
Yeah.
the stockpiled booze
Oh
and
my
cans of food.
gosh.
Okay, so you know what was amazing, Marin, is looking at the original Distinguished Savage, Walt
Oh my God.
Settlemeyer, and having it like looking in a mirror.
Oh
If
my
if I
God.
had been
This
wearing a
is
white shirt, which I don't know,
Too
it was
funny.
like looking in a flipping mirror.
This is perfect. Oh my God. I am well, this is I really appreciate the effort you put into this, Walt. This is so good.
More
This is so
exceeded our
good.
expectations.
Greggy's. Oh my God. This is so funny. This is hilarious. And you're feeding Greg's ego so bad right now. Oh
I-
my God.
I felt
Yeah,
that
enough of Walt talking about me. Let me talk about it.
I felt like the Royal Gregorian Order of Homophily was gave it a little more of a stately kind of a feel, right?
Yeah.
we want to
That's so funny.
project the correct image. is the
Well,
key.
you got to answer me one question, and I know
Absolutely.
Marin's never faced this
Oh my God.
because Marin's the hero of his family unit. And Brian, just so you know, that won't last. This is
No.
called the honeymoon period.
Oh
and
my
and,
God.
the thing is, you go out and you do great things, and you know, like what was that at the end of the Wizard of Oz, where he says, "Here, you get this because you're a great thing doer," and you
Yeah.
you work all day long, and you think, "Wow, I moved the dial, I changed the world," and then you come home, you're not a hero at home. Your
No.
family doesn't give a damn.
No.
You know, you're not wearing a cape anymore.
It's
And
very
like,
simple.
Wipe off your shoes.
How much are you depositing into the bank account? That's it.
Well, with Shelley, in that's like living with another hero. So you've got like the alpha and the alpha, you know.
Yeah.
And so the apex predator comes home, which is Shelley, and she's
Right.
like, "What have you done all day?" And I'm like, "But I talked on the radio." So,
And too funny, Walt. We really appreciate you coming on for this 100th
Yeah.
episode reunion / roast / Thanksgiving episode, because it is airing around the time of Thanksgiving.
Awesome.
And so we can kind of recap things that well, normally we can have people talking
Yep.
about how they've handled things in 2020, as chaotic as it's been, and what we're thankful for and all that. But you have outdone everyone with the Greg get up, including the poop emoji hat and the tan
Spot
jacket,
on.
for which
The pen.
for those of you who only listen, Greg has a tan jacket that he usually wears on all of them. So this is amazing. I don't even know where to start, Walt. This is so awesome.
Well, big shout out to Amazon for getting my poop emoji hat to me in time.
There
Oh
we go.
my gosh, that's great.
And, I already had a brown jacket, interestingly enough. I tried to find one closer to Greg's because we want to emulate our great leader, right? And so I felt like the homage, right?
What are the requirements for getting into for having
Here we go.
being allowed into the Royal Gregorian Order of Homophily? What are the requirements? Is there a passage or is there a some sort of ceremony? Is there
So-
you have to prove yourself in some way?
It is an extensive, there's an extensive background search first, whereupon well, it's actually me asking you a couple questions, right? So that's pretty extensive, right? So I also, one of the questions is, do you want a brown jacket? Right? How do you
You
feel
got to
about
have at least
Naturally.
one 5X
Yeah.
piece of clothing.
Yeah.
At
exactly,
least one.
exactly.
Okay.
Also, I say, have you ever read the book Left of Bang? If so, let me tell you the real story. And we have a couple other weird questions. I said, just want to gauge personality. Things like, how do you feel about something called Naked Tuesdays? That's always a big one, right? I haven't got anybody on board with that one yet. I don't know. We just come in, sit down, maybe listen to a podcast and sit around naked. You leave your clothes and inhibitions at the door.
That's true.
But
Clothes optional.
yeah, well, the poop emoji hat, obviously. I mean, let's be honest.
Oh
right?
my
So
God. This is too funny.
it's still a vetting process.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
like to, and I say we, I mean, so far it's just me, but hey, look, you know what? We're working on it. I'm trying to get the girlfriend on board.
Yeah.
She's a little leery still. She's like, I don't quite know what you're up to. And I'm like, hey, let's just let it happen.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I'm in that. Just go audio only because I'm never going to be able to cover up that video. And I'll tell you another thing. You got Marin at a disadvantage because over your right shoulder you got all that booze. So he hasn't been. He forgot to even turn on the recording.
Yeah.
He's going like, damn, I can name every one of those labels from here.
Oh, it's so great. It's
Yeah.
so great.
Is it too early for a drink? I don't think
No,
so.
it's not actually.
No.
And that's one of the great things about Brian. What's our drug policy on the
A
Gregorian?
very strict, no drug testing policy. Never,
Just in case.
never
So-
drug test anyone at Arcadia. We do not. We will not stand for that.
We don't
I
name
love,
names.
I love you so much for that right now. And also, as a side note, Brian has the very best answer to my question, what's your favorite guilty pleasure? And Brian's answer was, I don't feel guilty about any of my pleasures. He said it with such a bravado and confidence that I've mentioned, I'm like, let me tell you the best answer I ever got.
Yeah. I so occasionally have a self confidence that borderlines complete stupidity. So I don't really.
We embrace stupidity.
Yeah, it's that thin line between being hard and being stupid. I'd like to say I like to walk that line real carefully.
Oh, yeah.
So-
I'm familiar with that line, unfortunately.
and that's one of those. Yeah, it's like I'm not going to feel bad about something that I'm doing.
Nope.
I love that.
Too late in
I
the
love
game,
it.
by the way.
I
Well,
love that.
listen, Brian.
Oh my
Now
gosh.
that Walt has set the bar this high,
Yeah.
and I mean bar in both ways, bar in
Yeah.
Brian's way, which is something he crawls out
standard,
of routinely.
and standard,
Exactly.
yeah.
And the bar for then we have the podcast. We're at 100 podcasts. We're thankful for guys like Walt on the podcast. And you've got to understand, Brian calls me minutes before the podcast and goes, hey, we're going to do a podcast on, and then he gives the title. It's going to be annoying biases that are only shared by the whatever. And so I've got no preparation time. I think he does that on purpose, Walt. I think he wants
I
to
love
just
that.
catch me.
Yeah, but
slack.
what Greg forgets sometimes is he'll send me an idea for a podcast, like, hey, I want to cover this or this, and I literally move it to the email folder of podcast topics. These are different ones, like him or Sean Clemens will like submit and be like, hey, like
Sure.
let's do something like this, or let's, hey, you guys should talk about this. And just, I always just, oh, hey, that's good. And I reference it so I can go back at a later time, just right through. So that it was like this morning I texted him, I was like, hey, yeah, let's do the one on this cryptids and this. And he's like, oh, okay. Like, hang on. I was like, you sent me that idea like 2 weeks ago or a week ago, whatever.
I don't
And he's like,
remember
oh yeah,
any
okay,
of that.
okay, that's right. Yeah, no, I know. And he goes, but I want to talk about this. I'm like, okay, that's nothing. That's nothing.
Walt,
the topic.
he's been
Okay.
my vitriol comes through, and I typed to Marin, and he goes, "What are you butthurt about?" And I go, "Marin, you set me up with that question. Why did you do that?" And then all of a sudden he'll send back, and it was my question that I sent him, and I go, "Hey, make sure you weave this one in." And I'm like, "Wow, did I really say that?" I have no clue. Look at me.
Yeah. I
Much
still
come
have to remind Greg that this is just a conversation. We're just having a conversation. Like,
I love
like
that.
it's
I
just,
love that.
you don't have to. What do you mean ambush? You like, that's something I would ask you if we were having this conversation. So it's not.
I'm not very bright, but I mean well.
Oh, that's amazing. I
So-
love it. I love it. I mean, you guys come up, you come up on a lot of the podcasts for me, right? But I also, and I think I posted a picture on Instagram because I've woven in some of the stuff that I've learned from you guys. It's just the rudimentary stuff, man. But I reference, I reference your podcast. I reference you guys. I reference Arcadia. I talk about it in I want to talk about you guys when I'm going to do for 2 other systems close to us. One large metropolitan fire department and another EMS system close to us, man. And I just talk about, hey, this is where you can get this information, man. And you guys put out fucking stellar work, man. You got it's such amazing
Appreciate that.
content. I first discovered you guys. I think we talked about this when you guys were on my podcast. Man, I binged those episodes. I'll go back and listen. I like take notes like a big nerd that I am, and I just go bananas with it.
I know.
You have to understand, Walt, like when we teach in person is the way to go, and we still do in person.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other great ways of transferring messages, but human behavior is best taught fresh in the moment, on the stage of teaching in person. So Brian and I will never get potty breaks. We use the universal American Sign Language. I got to take a potty break. And we're up there, and we've got general guidelines, a left and right lateral limit, and what we're going to talk about. And Brian, you'll take this, I'll take this. And then boom, 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 you know, it goes from fire hose on the very first beginning of it, because you don't know what you don't know. And then pretty soon the audience doesn't understand. Man, they're answering all the questions. So what happens is there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens in the hallway. Brian and I will be heading for the bathroom or passing each other to go to the bathroom. And all of a sudden somebody will go with their notepad in hand going, hey, you talked about this. And what about this guy? And we knew this guy. And this happened when, well, the podcast literally gives us the chance to go down some of those rabbit holes and discuss some of those spirals that we never get a chance to go back to. So I'm thankful for it, because most of the stuff that I reach out to Brian, I go, hey, do you remember that kid that hit us up and said, hey, my girlfriend, or the guy that yelled out shoehorn at every one of the things? And, you know, we have some very interesting people that show up for the course sometime. And, and so this gives us a forum to discuss those things. And it also gives us a chance to meet some really unique people, and you included.
But yeah, man, like we appreciate that you are, you know, it's good to hear that, like, hey, you're getting that value out of it, right? Because that's the whole thing, is like, we don't want to, like, we want you to get this takeaway, and there's a lot we can do. And it's really to get people to ask more questions, right? If I can get you to ask the right questions, then we're good. Like, I don't know what that answer is going to be. And some people get that and some people don't, but it's all about you. It's on you. You have to be the user end here. Like, you can't refer back to the notes. You have to go, all right, how do I take that material and then look at the world and go, oh man, bing, 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 bing. I see what they're talking about. Now I can lay in whatever my job is, whatever my role is. And that's, hopefully it's coming across. And so we try to kind of push it. So now is like, I always try to get feedback from people about, like, well, what do you want to hear? What would be a cool thing? Cause like, engaging that listener audience of getting, like, you know, I've always wondered, because the one we did on the OODA loop came from a while back. I had posted something about the OODA loop, and we talked about Boyd and stuff and all these different stuff all the time. And then someone had literally asked in there, he's like, hey, have you guys ever done a specific episode on it? And I went like, damn, no, we haven't. So I was like, hey, that would actually be really good. And then it turned out to, I mean, it's only been out 2 days now while we're recording this, and it's gotten more, it's the fastest 2 days in terms of downloads than we've had of any other episode. And so it hit home. And so we're like, okay, cool. Cause we don't always know what's going to hit home, because most of the time,
I bet you don't.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, you know how that is, or you know, where like, I walk away from one, I'm like, that I don't think that one was that great. And then we get feedback. Everyone's like, oh my God, that's awesome. I was like, oh, okay. Or we'll have one. I was like, damn, that was, Greg and I are high fiving. He's like, that was a great conversation. We went to
right.
And then people are like, hey man, I didn't get that. It's like, maybe that was a little too internal to us. Like, we weren't explaining it because.
And then Marin makes me sit in the corner with the poop hat.
Yeah, I do.
He does too. Most
amazing.
people don't understand. We're actually in the same room. We have Connex, and Marin's on top and I'm on the bottom. It's very austere. It's very Spartan, but it keeps us honest.
That's amazing. Now, one of the best things that I have honestly taken away from you guys, and also one of the things that I talk about the most, because when you hear something and it's a paradigm shift in your thinking, and it's training changes behaviors, and the training versus education that you guys always talk about, man. And when the first time you said it, it was like Colonel Kirk said in Apocalypse Now, it's like a crystal bullet piercing my brain, right? Like, I was like, that makes all the sense in the world. Training, the hands-on, the learning, that in-person learning, versus like, well, you can read a book, or I can put something out on this all day long, but it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same take-home points. And man, that was a paradigm shift for me in the stuff that I teach, whether it's defensive tactics or the tactical medicine stuff. Man, that was probably the biggest thing that I have shamelessly stolen, yet give you credit for. On it's amazing. It's amazing.
No, we appreciate that, and that's a, you know, even just that tagline of the, hey, there's a difference between education and training. You know, that alone is, if you can come to that epiphany moment like you did and realize, like, oh damn, I see what you're saying. There's, in skill development, especially with something that you have to learn and apply in an applied setting, like that's a different skill set that you have to learn. Like, all the background, you know, explicit knowledge on it and the books you can read on it is great, and it informs you, but it's all about the application of it. And when you can distinct between those two, and what you need to focus on during that. I mean, you know that as a medic, you're giving training. There's some stuff that's great to know, but realistically, what do you need? I got to learn how to put on a tourniquet and pack a wound and get it to the, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, let's focus on those, and then also get into here's why you need to do that. But you don't
Yeah.
need to go over, you know, that situation. You're not talking about different types of blood pressure readings and what that means and pulse ox stuff, because
Yeah.
they don't need to know that right there. That's
Yeah.
great. That's education. That's great. But the training part, if you focus on that, and then it allows you to kind of get like almost sharpen that blade a little bit, meaning
Yeah.
instead of focusing on, I got to get all this content out, it's like, well, no, I just need to focus on these 3 key takeaways,
And be
and then
really
just like,
good.
and yeah,
Yeah.
get really good at it. And then like Greg was talking about, then those hallway conversations come up, and that allows you to go into a further discussion.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Well, we do
man.
small group all the time. And the reason we do
Yeah.
small group is there's so many questions that come up because we're on transmit. We're on transmit almost all of the class. And then by the time we get to the part task and the prac app, you have to have that little gap for them to fill in. And we
Yeah.
always know, like, you know, I hate such a strong word, but I love using it sometimes. You can tell when we get sniped. Like there's always going to be a contra audience. There's always going to be
Yeah.
somebody that doesn't like it. And I remember, you know, 2 decades, the combat rule of 3s. So it's called the combat rule of 3s. I came up with it. When things start to cluster, and you can see it in science. And so I get hit up in Florida, and a guy comes up and goes, "Well, don't you mean the combat rules of 3?" And I said, "If that's all you took out of this course, kiss the fattest part of my ass and have a good day. Here's your diploma." You know, and I know you get that too, Walt. There's people that are focused on the wrong thing, and they don't get that what we're trying to do is we're trying to create this out of the galaxy. We're trying to create 1 star you can take home with you today.
Oh, absolutely. Some people are so pedantic, man. They just want to focus on this one little weird thing. And I'm like, hey, man, that's not even, if that's what's important to you, okay. But I feel like you're missing the bigger point.
I know I was that same thing. I had one where I was, you know, deconstructing the elements of an IED to understand where they come from, how to get them. What, you know, it wasn't about bombs. It was about access, and it was about organization level and how to determine the human behind it. And, you know, like one guy came up at the end. It's like, well, you know, you said that Russian red dead cord burns at, you know, 38,000 feet per second, and it's 32. And I'm like, that was your takeaway. That's what you're like. I was like, get the fuck out of here. Just leave.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
Like, of all of the, like, all the notes that everyone took down and said, hey, wow, I never looked at it that way, but you're going to come up with that. Like, all right, dude, like that, you missed the point. So
Absolutely.
We spent an afternoon talking about Gestalt psychology and cognitive dissonance, and you were fine with all of that.
Yeah.
But when you got to slide 30, you forgot to put the logo on. You lost it. You know what I'm saying? You lost your shit and couldn't take it.
That was the best. There was one guy who was Greg was going on about, you know, this and telling this story, and we had just talked about kind of a little bit of symbolism and iconography and different flags of different Gulf countries, different Arab countries, or like one was Iran, and talking about the different meanings through it. And then Greg's then telling a story, and the story was where he was in Iraq, but he had literally just got done talking about Iran. So he said Iran instead of Iraq.
Yeah.
And like, but you could tell in the context of watching it, it was just a slip. He meant to say like right. And someone literally came up afterwards like, that's a BS story. He wasn't doing that stuff in Iran. And I was like, what? He's like, Greg didn't do that in Iran. That's not like, and I'm like, what? No, he was in Iraq. Yeah, but he said this. I was like, no. Oh my God. Like, wow. You didn't figure out from the context of that story what had happened.
But they don't want
Maybe
to.
you don't belong here.
Yeah.
They don't want to. And you know the funny thing, Walt, like for example, it's 10:30 Mountain when we're recording this on my side. And Brian and I literally have been on the air with one project or the other since 7:30 my time. And so when you're up doing in-person teaching, we don't take breaks. If you need to go to the bathroom, get up and go, because Brian and I won't stop. And when there's 3 of us, it's even worse when Shelly's there.
Yeah.
And so you're dehydrated, and it's late in the day, and it's a 3rd day of training, and you soak through all your clothes, and all of a sudden you get the 32 instead of the 38, or you say 1776 instead of 1976.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter, because what you're not doing is, you know, what you're doing is you're sharing through storytelling an experience that the person can have a memory and emotional link with in their own mind, in their own life, you know.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
it's funny how that works.
Yeah.
And you know, we're an
Oh, I know.
acquired taste. I get it, but I would tell the people that are watching, the formulaic podcasts that are out there that do nothing to move the dial.
Yeah.
Hey, enjoy yourself, but that's not my milieu. I
Yeah.
still, when I need to cleanse a palate, I'm immediately going to the Distinguished
Yeah,
Savage.
Hey-o.
you got
seeing what
a
you're up
good
to.
one, man. You always have
Oh, I appreciate that.
conversations, and I like how you kind of approach some of them because
Yep.
your passion and sincerity comes through. Like, I mean, it
Oh,
comes
I appreciate that.
straight through where you're just like, Walt is really interested about this right now. I wasn't that interested. It was like kind of cool to me, but now
Yeah.
because of you, because you're so excited and passionate, now I am. And it's true. That's how it works, right? You know, like if you're
Yeah.
passionate about that and you're excited, I'm like, you know, you're not meaning to, but you're making the show more exciting and getting like more interest in that guest, and especially the ones
Yeah.
with the I forget her name, who did the all the anti-money laundering
Mhm.
Yeah,
stuff. Like,
yeah, she's coming back on, Bell.
yeah, and it was really cool because like you were really excited about it, and then like I'm like, well, fuck, Walt, start asking questions. Let's go. I'm excited. I was like, come on, man. Like, me too. Like, let's hear about it. It was a really cool episode.
Yeah,
But
It
I
was
just,
probably like our Dale Dye episode, Marin, where
yeah.
we were so starstruck with
Yeah.
Dale, you know,
Yeah.
and
I blatantly admitted it right from the beginning. I
was
was like,
funny.
look, this is going to
Yeah.
get weird because I'm actually
Yeah.
kind of like, this is so cool. And I don't have that with other guests.
and
So,
we're Walt's
Yeah, no, I get
fanboys,
that. I
but
totally
not at
get
that
that.
level. You know?
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know, man. Well, when you guys came on, I somehow scheduled you and Tony Blauer on the same days. And I was just like, oh, I was so nervous, man. And you can hear it too much because I talk fast, you know, because I'm
Yeah.
trying to keep up. And
Yeah.
man, I was so super stoked to talk to you guys. I mean, I still am, obviously, right? I mean, I'm a ridiculous fan, man. I'm like, that's when I started the cult, quite honestly.
Yeah. That's when
so,
yeah.
yeah.
I just keep referring to yourself as we do this and we do that. Don't
Yeah.
ever tell anyone how many people
Yeah.
there actually are.
Yeah, yeah, that-
Well, our
yeah, that's the
numbers
key.
are, we keep it a secret what our numbers are
Yeah.
for,
Well, and
for
I-
safety.
And I think I talked to you, Brian. I do have a Peter Griffin beach towel on order as a prayer rug, and I pray towards Gunderson. You know, at the time, maybe 2, 3 in the afternoon. I got to kind of work out a certain time, but we're gonna get a little
So
prayer
Marin-
rug.
I wonder what time that would be. Yeah.
Aaron
exactly.
has this advertising campaign to Kickstarter to try to get us back down to Texas because they love us in Dallas and Houston and Austin. And the problem is that they're all so busy that, yeah, we'll get to it. We're going to call you back,
Yeah.
and they never do. So Marin's got this campaign where it's a photo of me wearing nothing but a bath towel, and it says, "Get us back to
I love
Texas
that.
because Greg is big like Texas." And the enormity. I've got my own gravity field, you know. So
I love that.
if for nothing else, just to get some shade, invite me down. Right,
Hilarious.
Marin? I think that would work.
Man,
All right.
if I could, if I
Yeah,
could
go
figure out how
ahead.
to get you guys down here,
Yeah.
man, I would. If I was independently wealthy, I would well, first I'll probably just follow you around. You would become my like a Grateful Dead type situation where I just
Oh,
follow you around
God.
from class to class, and you're like,
oh my God.
Jesus, this guy. To finally just be like, all right, hey man, Walt's here. Like, all right.
Well, Texans love Gunnison. Come up to Gunnison. Gunnison,
Yeah.
Crescent View's full of Texans. I got to wade through them, like, you know, pushing with pokers to get through to go shopping.
I love that. I love that.
All right,
Yes,
man.
absolutely.
I don't want to take too much more of your time. And we got
No.
stuff. You got stuff today. We really appreciate you coming back on to do this. And yours
Oh,
is
thank you.
hilarious. And just right off the bat,
Oh, yeah.
thankfully I was recording right off the bat to capture our initial reaction to that. That
I
was-
love it. I love it. Because I ran it by you initially. I didn't want to tell you at first. I just want to surprise both of you.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
like, I had this idea.
I was so shocked I didn't catch on immediately. That's
Yeah.
how brilliant I am.
I did not tell Greg. It was perfect.
Oh, that's
Well,
awesome.
let's keep this friendship going. Let's keep
Yeah,
this
man.
interaction going, buddy.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. I love you guys. You're incredible. Man, I would recommend you. I cite my sources on you guys because you guys are the gold standard for me in that, man. And I've talked to
Aw.
Brian about that in the past. Because I've texted him for advice, man. And, you know, I'm like, hey, man, I'm thinking about this guy or whatever. And then when you guys have been huge for me in so many ways, man. I'm a Patreon subscriber. And I mean, I know it's not much a month for you guys, but man, anything I do to support you guys and I get more information and it's just incredible, man. I can't
Appreciate
recommend the website and the Patreon enough because it's incredible.
Awesome, man.
Thanks,
Well, I
Walt.
appreciate it. We always
man.
big props to the Distinguished Savage podcast. We love it, and we love what you're
appreciate
doing,
it.
man. And we'll get down there eventually, and we'll have to record one live at in your studio there, and we'll
Yep.
finish off all those bottles behind you and see what
Yeah,
happens.
it's bad luck to have them partially full, so we'll
yeah,
clear
yeah,
that
just
up.
clear
for you.
them all out for you. Right
Fix that
there.
right up. And cigars.
There we go.
Oh.
Let's do it. All right, man.
All
Well, we appreciate it, brother. Thanks for doing
Absolutely.
this.
My pleasure,
love you,
man.
buddy.
I'll let you know when it all comes out and tag and everything and all that stuff.
Awesome.
Send you
Yeah,
links.
thanks for having me. I
So,
appreciate it, boys.
all right, man. Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
All right.
Walt.
Thank you. Bye, guys.